Okay, so bonjour à tous. Good morning to you all. Welcome to the FACC 2020 annual meeting. I'm Franck Avis, the president of the FACC. I'm glad to have you all today. It would have been better, of course, to have this meeting in person, but even if we decided in June to postpone the meeting to the end of this year, we still have to cope with the sanitary situation. And this year has been definitely a difficult one. Our daily lives have changed. The so important community life is reduced. The travel ban has limited our horizon, and business has been dramatically affected, especially in Houston. So I know for how many of you it had been very difficult and how the crisis has badly impacted your businesses. Therefore, I would like to thank you all for your continued support to the FACC. It couldn't exist without you. And the crisis has been also a roadblock for the Chamber this year. Many of the new activities the board wanted us to launch and to expand in 2020 were postponed. I think especially to our activities to help French small businesses and startups to settle down and develop in Texas. And I regret also that we couldn't bring a delegation of Houston to the Paris Vivatech show in May this year. So we had to adjust to the new normal, mainly with the digital events, and they proved to be successful. We will present it in details today. Of course, the financial results of this year are not what the board was expecting. Nonetheless, they are sound, and our treasurer, Jérôme Pelletan, will explain it later. So I can say that the FACC is getting through the crisis, and this is the success of the creativity and efforts of the team. So I'd like to say a big thank to them, to Constance, our executive director, and our deputies, Leah and Aurore. Thank you very much for your job this year. And we know that now that the end of the crisis is at the corner with the vaccines, so things will get better for the FACC, and I sincerely hope that it will be better for all of you from now on. As they say in film movies, especially maybe important in Houston, we think about Star Wars, but you know it is a sentence from Nietzsche: what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. So now I leave the floor to our friend John Eldridge, chairman of the FACC and one of our most faithful support. So please, John.
Good morning, Frank and everyone. And I want to echo Frank's thanks to all who are joining us today, but also to Constance, Leah, and Aurore for carrying the Chamber through a very difficult year. I also want to thank Frank because without his leadership, we would not have been able to have the success that we've had. As he mentioned, it's really a difficult year. We are transitioning out of the hard time, though. 2021 will be better. Some of the objectives and goals that we had put off due to the pandemic will be reinstituted and accomplished next year. And I want to thank the members, especially the corporate sponsors, for their support. It's vital that we continue that support now more than ever, because many of the activities that generate revenue for the FACC were curtailed due to the restrictions on everybody's travel and activities. Please stay the course. We have a great team. We have a great program. We have a great future. And I look forward to the rest of our meeting and to seeing all of you in person sometime in 2021.
Thank you very much, John, for your words and always your wise support to the Chamber. So please, let's have a quick look at today's agenda. So we will review the activities and the budget, and we will end the meeting by the election online of the directors of the board. But at first, it is our great honor today to welcome Michael Graff, Chairman and CEO at Air Liquide, as keynote speaker. So John, I leave you the floor for the conversation with Mike.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you, Mike, for joining us as our featured speaker at our annual meeting. I also want to thank Jerome Peloton, not only for bringing us Mike Graff as our distinguished speaker, but also for being such an able treasurer and officer of the French American Chamber of Commerce, Houston. Without Jerome's leadership, our finances over the past few years would not be where they are today. It's great to have a team member like Jerome working weekly with the staff and others to make our success what it is. Mike Graff is a distinguished executive with Air Liquide. As Frank mentioned, he is the chairman and chief executive for their North American holdings. He is also an executive committee member of the Air Liquide Group. He's been with Air Liquide since 2007, and we are glad to have him based here in Houston. He is head of the business operations for the Americas and the Asia Pacific regions of Air Liquide Group, and he's the global chairman of the group's electronics business line. He has over 35 years of experience, not all of it in industrial gases and technology, but also in refining and chemicals and energy. He serves on a number of boards, both corporate and nonprofit, as you would expect for someone with Mike's stature. He has a background in chemical engineering, and we are honored to listen to him as he talks to us about how this critical company, this major global force, is helping the world and his shareholders transition and the key role that hydrogen can play in the transition of our energy and our future. We talk about hydrocarbons a lot. He's going to break the chain and talk about hydrogen and its key role. So Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you. Oh, by the way, one last point. For those who have questions, please submit them in the Q&A at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and then I will ask the questions to Mike at the conclusion of his prepared remarks. Mike, to you.
Thank you, John, and thank you for that very kind introduction, and thanks to you and Frank and all of the FACC for having me and inviting me to join today. And just as an aside, if you've got Jerome Peloton handling your finances, I know you're in very good hands. So it's great to be with you today. What I would like to do, if we go to the next slide, is first give you a brief overview of Air Liquide, and then talk about our climate objectives that we have as a company, some of the core elements of technology and innovation that help us achieve not only our long-term goals on climate, but a lot of our business objectives in general, and then really focus in on what John mentioned earlier is hydrogen as kind of the enabler of the future as we think about the energy transition and what all that means. And if we go to the next slide, I think just to start the overview, to give you a broad sense, Air Liquide was originally founded back in 1902. We talk today in the US anyway, and maybe around the world, about two individuals in a garage that built the first computer out in California in the 70s. And now we've all got something more powerful than NASA ever dreamed of that we utilize every day in our smartphone. Well, the reality is about in 1902, two entrepreneurs in a garage or a warehouse in a Paris suburb developed the first commercially viable way to separate the air that we are breathing today into oxygen and nitrogen and to liquefy it. And that was really the beginning of acetylene torch cutting and welding. Up until that point in time, steel had been hard cut and all steel was joined with rivets. So that was part of the enabler of the industrial age. And the company has grown, it has evolved over time through technology and through innovation to where it is today. We have 67,000 employees on a worldwide basis. We have almost 4 million customers and patients that we serve every day. Our sales from a revenue standpoint are roughly 22 billion on an annual basis in euro, so call it 26 billion in US dollars. And our market capitalization has continued to grow over the years. Today it stands at over 80 billion US dollars. If we go to the next slide, you get a sense of how we're spread geographically around the world. We operate in 80 countries around the world, and you can see we've got a fairly balanced footprint between Europe and the Americas, as well as in Asia Pacific. And as a company, we touch or enable almost every industry there is. So whether that's upstream oil and gas and refining and chemicals and polymers, or steel and glass, or food, pharmaceuticals, all types of manufacturing. We're in basics of construction, metal fabrication. We've got a very, very large and growing electronics business with a specific focus on semiconductors, basically enabling the production with our gases and with a specialized line of advanced materials to produce the transistors at a nanoscale that make all of our digital devices work. We are also very big in space, which we've now seen has now come back to the forefront with a lot of the activity that we have seen. And then finally, we've got a large healthcare business, which has been instrumental in fighting COVID around the world over these last 9 to 10 months. We provide in-home patient care in about 35 countries around the world, and we provide a strong line of medical gases. As a matter of fact, we are the world's largest provider of medical oxygen, which has been core to the treatment of COVID over the last 9 or 10 months, as well as the respirators that are so necessary to go ahead and treat patients. So that gives you a bit of a sense of Air Liquide. I think, as I said, it's in our DNA to be driven by innovation, to be driven by technology. And we've always had a very strong sense of sustainability in all that we did. And it starts with safety for our employees, as well as the communities in which we operate, a very strong focus on the environment. And we've always tried to be a good neighbor in all the communities in which we operate. If we go to the next slide, I think it's a natural transition then for Air Liquide to have a very strong focus on climate. And recognizing that with that strong focus on climate, we felt we needed to go ahead and demonstrate our commitment to reducing the carbon footprint of not only our own operations, but for our customers and ecosystems around the world. We embarked on a set of goals and objectives rooted in where we were in terms of our performance in 2015, with a very strong set of goals to reduce our carbon intensity of all we do, even though we're growing the business each and every day by 30% over that 10-year period. And as we sit today, at least at the end of 2019, we had already achieved 90% of those goals. And the way we get there, the way we think about how we address each and every element of climate, if we go to the next slide, for us really starts with our own asset base. That is to say, what do we need to do in our day in and day out operations to better manage our own CO2 footprint, our own carbon footprint, and deliver what we need to in order to meet some of the climate objectives for the future. And for us, there's 3 major components that we address in that regard. The first has to do with the use of renewable power. We have a very large footprint in our operations where we consume a lot of energy. A lot of that is electrical power. And for us to increase that level of renewable power in all that we do is critically important to help driving success for Air Liquide. And it may sound easy, that is to say, we'll find a way to procure a renewable source of power to run our facilities rather than more the historical version of how we generate power. Recognize that when you begin to utilize either photovoltaics for solar power or wind to go ahead and generate electricity, the wind doesn't blow all the time, the sun goes down at night, and yet our operations run 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And so we have worked to build into our ecosystem of our operations the ability to not only source renewable power, but to really utilize that in our mix of day in and day out operations. We've also looked very hard at how we design our own facilities. That is to say, to ensure that we design our facilities to be ever more efficient and have an ever smaller carbon footprint while delivering more and more product to our customers. In addition, we have worked to go ahead and modernize and renew our existing facilities and really rethink how we operate our facilities to meet our customers' needs, to source power in the right way, and to optimize all of our facilities using a very strong digital framework and artificial intelligence in how we manage our operations in 80 countries around the world. And then finally, we not only deliver our products via pipeline or have very large on-site plants that meet our customers' needs, but we deliver a lot of our products worldwide through a logistics system using vehicular vehicles, trucks, vans, whatever the case may be. Just to give you a sense, right now, today, as we're meeting, we have 6,000 trucks on the road just in the US, delivering our products for industrial needs and for medical needs. And so for us to really modernize that fleet, to move to utilizing renewable sources of energy and power to power that fleet, to optimize our distribution system, and to rethink how we can manage that footprint so that we can reduce the number of miles or kilometers driven each and every day while we meet our customers' growing needs is critically important. So we work, first of all, to manage our own assets in the most optimal way possible from a carbon standpoint. The second element, though, goes well beyond our own fence line, well beyond our own capabilities, if we go to the next slide. And that is, we work to enable the ability for our customers to meet their own carbon goals, to reduce their own carbon footprint. We start, first of all, with a series of low carbon offers to help them reduce their requirements in a way that would allow us to either meet those needs directly on site with some of our facilities, to mutualize some of the offers we have to reduce the amount of vehicular traffic to serve their needs, to rethink how we would go ahead and deliver utilizing that digital footprint, as well as lightweighting everything we can to reduce the weight that we need to go ahead and transport. And then finally, some of the things that we've developed from a technology standpoint over time have been translated into ways that enable our customers to operate their facilities to reduce their energy footprint and directly reduce their carbon footprint. For example, oxy-combustion is a tried and a proven means to reduce the energy footprint of any combustion technology that our customers would use, as well as actually reducing the NOx footprint as well. And then finally, we are working with our customers on a number of breakthrough technologies to rethink how they produce their products, utilizing some of our capabilities and reduce their carbon footprint. And just to give you a couple of examples, we are working with several steel companies worldwide now to begin to reduce the amount of carbon in the front end of a blast furnace, the amount of coke that they bring into the front end of a blast furnace, and replace that with hydrogen to really change the carbon footprint of the steelmaking process. Another more high-tech version of that is in the semiconductor production facilities that we provide for our customers' needs, and in the materials that are used or the gases used to produce those nanoscale transistors. And that is to say that we are able to go ahead and provide gases and materials that allow our customers to reach that nanoscale, building transistors that are smaller than a human cell, and to do that with technologies and capabilities that have a carbon footprint that's 1/10 of the former generation of gases or materials that might have been used that can't even achieve that scale today, and to do that in a much more sustainable way. And then finally, we also have a number of technologies that allow our customers, as well as for our own assets, to capture the carbon that is liberated in their process and begin to promote a circular economy. And then finally, if we go to the next slide, the other element that we feel very strongly about is the fact that over time, the technologies that we have developed and then been able to deploy around the world have enabled a lot of the drivers of the world as we look to the future and as we look to what we want to achieve and what our aspirations are, whether it's climate or it's industry or how we meet healthcare needs or any other element of how we need to go ahead and create a better future for the world around us. And so we are working to contribute directly to a low carbon society, utilizing our technology and utilizing our capabilities. The first starts with kind of a view on circular economy. And that is, how can we do a better job of reducing the use of natural resources and reuse things that maybe would have been left for the waste streams in the past. For example, we have developed the capabilities to capture the biomethane that is generated off a landfill. And utilizing some of our membrane technologies to go ahead and purify that into a synthetic natural gas that can then be reused. And I will get to that further in a moment when we talk about hydrogen. Secondly, we look at clean, cold logistics. Is not a surprise. There's a lot of discussion today about cold chain logistics, whether that's to transport food and other perishables, or now to transport some of the vaccines that we will desperately need to go ahead and manage and control the impact of the virus. And we have developed technologies and capabilities that begin to alleviate the need for refrigeration systems, for mechanical use of refrigeration, and to utilize some of our cold cryogenic technologies to actually go ahead and provide freezing and refrigeration techniques to go ahead and manage transport. And this is already very active in Europe and now starting to grow in the US. We also have a focus on hydrogen as clean mobility. And I'm going to talk a lot more about this in a minute, but we clearly see hydrogen as a clear enabler to drive clean mobility in the future. And also to actually provide a backbone for the global economy of what we can do in terms of meeting the world's energy needs in the future. And we get there, if we look at the next slide, through the development and the use of a lot of new technologies, a lot of new ideas, and a lot of innovation. I mentioned what we can do with landfill off gas and those types of things. And in natural gas reforming, for example, is kind of the proven technique that's been used for many, many years to produce large quantities of hydrogen. Whether that's to reduce the environmental footprint of the current transportation fuels that we use, whether that's to enable other industrial processes, or even to go ahead and create other opportunities that we see, for example, in space and rocketry. And we have developed membrane systems that would allow us, as I mentioned before, to create that renewable natural gas that could then be reformed in a traditional type of technology with steam methane reforming and have a low carbon footprint production of hydrogen utilizing that renewable natural gas. We also are very focused on the technologies of the future to produce hydrogen, and electrolysis we see as that core enabler. We have a lot of capabilities already in electrolysis. We see this as the means to convert renewable power into supplying the energy needs of the future in a variety of different ways. And so we are on the process of not only demonstrating, as we have over the years, of utilizing the more traditional forms of electrolysis, but we are at the forefront of developing PEM membrane electrolysis, which I will talk about in a few more minutes. We also, if we look at the next slide, have these capabilities to capture carbon off existing processes and drive a very low carbon mindset and create a low carbon footprint even for existing facilities today. Our CryoCap recovery processes and cold membrane technology processes can be used in the production of hydrogen on a traditional steam methane reformer to capture 90 to 98% of all the carbon that is liberated in those processes or that is produced in the combustion aspects, and allows us to go ahead and not only capture that, but in the process to purify it and to drive it to a supercritical state that is already a liquid that can then be readily transported and reused or sequestered. And those same technologies could be used for any thermal power plant or any other type of combustion facility that generates a lot of carbon. If we go to the next slide, I think that the other aspects of this that I mentioned earlier come back to this biogas upgrading and membrane technology. And I think this is really important because if you look at the number of landfills around the world, and especially in the US, if you think about all the biodigesters that are used in a variety of different ways, we have the capabilities to capture the natural gas waste that is produced there and re-inject that in a clean synthetic way back into the domestic grids that could be used for many, many applications. And those same membrane technologies are really utilized in many facets. It's used in the cold membrane technology I mentioned before. It's used in biogas and other advanced separation technologies that will allow us to go ahead and meet the needs of separation in the future and clean some of these streams that are developed. If we go to the next slide, I now want to really begin to focus on hydrogen. I think that we have been engaged in hydrogen for many, many years, but it seems that with a real focus today on climate, with a focus on the energy transition, I think it is now highly recognized that hydrogen can be a core enabler of meeting our energy needs globally in the future. And as you can see in this slide, this is a slide that was developed by McKinsey as a view of how the world might evolve from an energy standpoint into the future. And you can see that today, there's about 56 million metric tons of hydrogen that is produced and utilized in processes around the world today. This is primarily for industrial use, some of those processes that I mentioned before, and a few other minor aspects for backup protocols in certain energy situations. The forecast for the growth of hydrogen is for that to grow tenfold in the coming years. That is to say, by 2050, we could see hydrogen as providing 18 to 20% of the full global energy demand in the world around us. And we will see that in power generation. We will clearly see that in transportation. We'll see that to provide the energy needs for industry. We'll see that potentially as well for heating buildings and generating power for buildings, and also eventually to create feedstocks for certain industries. Actually, that hydrogen combined with some of that captured CO2 can actually provide the backbone of the feedstocks for a number of industries that are utilizing hydrocarbons today. If we go to the next slide, you can get a sense of how this works. It starts obviously with the large scale procurement and utilization of renewable power. And how do we generate that? How do we make that work? And then if you begin to look at how you distribute that energy across a variety of sectors and how we can utilize that as a buffer to increase the resiliency of power needs that are provided for and driven by renewable power is critically important in itself. That is to say that if in fact you want to rely on renewable power for the future, and you want to use the sun's power, you want to use wind power as examples, you've got to find a way to store energy so that when the sun goes down, you can power the city of Houston at night. So that in a peak power period, you can still provide your energy needs without having to restart other high carbon sources of power. And in reality, hydrogen provides that capability. It'll decarbonize transportation. It'll decarbonize industrial energy use. And it'll actually meet all the elements that I mentioned before in a low or zero carbon way. If we go to the next slide, I think we are in a place today where pretty much everything we need to get this off the ground is clearly in place for scale up. We already see markets beginning to evolve. We see globally, whether that's in Europe, whether that's in North America, or even in Asia, we're starting to see the introduction of electric vehicles that are run by fuel cells or powered by fuel cells. We are seeing the ability of new technologies and an ecosystem to begin to develop and is going to drive deployment to align things in the right way. And I also think we're starting to see a lot of policies globally begin to support a climate-friendly mindset as to how we drive our energy needs for the world around us. And of course, in the end, it's got to be accepted by society in general. And I think we clearly see that evolving as well. And in order to enable that, if you go to the next slide, we recognized that we needed to create not just the ecosystem I spoke of from an industrial standpoint to make this work, but in order to get this off the ground, we saw as Air Liquide a need to find like-minded companies in different parts of the value chain, in different parts of the supply chain, to work together, to collaborate, to begin to develop this ecosystem and to think about that future that could be driven by hydrogen. And a little over 4 years ago, joint with Toyota and 4 other like-minded companies, we co-founded the Hydrogen Council. We had our first meeting as part of the World Economic Forum's annual meeting in January of 2017. And we began to widen the breadth of sector and geographic interest, starting at the CEO level of many of these companies and then getting general thought leaders engaged, whether that was across Europe or the US or Japan or Korea or China or the Middle East. We have now seen this grow from 6 companies to over 92 companies on a global basis. And we already see the announcement of over 50 major projects involving hydrogen with kind of the seeding investment of over $100 billion US. If we go to the next slide, I'd like to spend a few minutes kind of talking about our role as Air Liquide to kind of bring it home and give you a sense of where we're focused. And for us, this is more than an aspiration. For us, this is more than a vision. We are actively today already invested in finding the right ways to make this happen. For us, it starts with that procurement of renewable power that I mentioned earlier. You have to develop the systems and the capabilities to actually utilize those sources of renewable power in a true industrial setting, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And we are already doing that in North America. We are already demonstrating that in Europe. The second piece for us is around the production aspects. And so whether it's the more traditional means of producing hydrogen and doing that with a low carbon footprint, or the development of new PEM electrolysis technologies, we are mastering those production techniques and already investing at those at the industrial scale. I mentioned before our supply chains and our capabilities, whether that is by pipeline, whether that is by logistics with trucking. We have all the capabilities that we need to deliver hydrogen, not only safely and reliably, but to make sure it's available all the time. And in order to support that, you have to have the capabilities in some sectors to liquefy hydrogen. And that is not an easy task, and we have mastered those technologies, we have mastered those capabilities, and we continue to invest in that technology. We have already enabled strong distribution networks, whether that's here on the Gulf Coast, whether that's in Northern Europe or in Asia. And as I mentioned before, we are already deep into many industries that utilize hydrogen on a regular basis. And so we're able to leverage that to continue to grow and to continue to evolve. If we go to the next slide, this gives you a snapshot of kind of where we are as we think about the ecosystem just within North America and more specifically the US. Recognize that we as Air Liquide have been producing and meeting our customers' needs in hydrogen for well over 40 years. And actually, our technologies go far deeper than that. I think that if you look at Air Liquide in general, that we've understood the technologies and developed the technologies for 50, 60, 70 years around hydrogen and how you can produce it and how you can manage it. Today, we produce over 1 trillion cubic feet per year of hydrogen in the world around us. We have over 1,200 miles of hydrogen pipelines. We have 46 very large hydrogen production plants that are more their traditional steam methane reforming capability. But we already have 40 electrolyzers in operation around the world. And we've kind of leveraged those capabilities. We've leveraged those technologies in order to help enable the development of the ecosystem in Europe, in Asia, and of course here in the US. And today, first of all, we have begun to enable mobility in different parts of the country. For example, we have already helped enable the utilization of hydrogen for the introduction of the first generation vehicles that utilize hydrogen to actually generate electricity on board and then power that electric vehicle for the state of California. And we've already begun to demonstrate that as well as this begins to get demonstrated in the Northeast. We are currently, as we speak, finalizing the startup of the world's largest industrial scale PEM membrane electrolyzer in Bécancour, which is the Canadian side of Niagara Falls. So we're taking renewable power from the dam. We are producing power with the latest generation technology with the PEM membrane electrolyzer. And then we are liquefying that with renewable power for use from an industrial standpoint in Canada, and also to seed the transportation market, both in Canada and in the northeastern part of the US. We have also begun to build out the beginning of the hydrogen refueling stations that will be utilized in the northeastern part of the US to go ahead and deliver that hydrogen to the vehicles that will be introduced next year. We think so highly of this technology, we continue to develop it, and we have taken a joint ownership along with Cummins in the company that developed some of these PEM membrane electrolyzers, and we are beginning to go ahead and deploy that in many parts of the world. And then finally, at a very large scale, we have some facilities that are being built in Nevada, in North Las Vegas, that will actually go ahead and supply fully on a renewable clean hydrogen basis, similar to the quality of hydrogen we produce up in Bécancour, to go ahead and fuel up to 40,000 new vehicles that will begin to be introduced into the state of California next year by Toyota, by Hyundai, by Honda, as they begin to ramp the zero emission vehicles powered by true renewable power. And basically you have a situation where we will be delivering energy needs, we will be powering the transportation sector, basically starting with water and renewable power. And in the end, the only thing that comes out of, quote, the tailpipe, again, is water. So it is a truly circular means to go ahead and meet the world's energy needs that we're able to deploy. So I think that pretty much summarizes it. I think the last slide is just there to say thank you for listening. And maybe, John, if it makes sense for you, we can go to questions.
Thanks very much, Mike. It was a very enlightening and inspirational talk. We have time for a few questions. Let me just start with one about the challenges that Air Liquide must face given its extraordinary diversification across business lines, across the globe. What are the keys to success in driving initiatives like decarbonization or promotion of hydrogen as a fuel or other key ingredient? How do you manage that and make it successful given this extraordinary diversification that you have within Air Liquide?
So I think, John, it starts with a mindset of innovation It starts with a willingness to open and drive new markets. And I also believe the core components in our culture of sustainability all come together in order to help enable this. For something like this to get off the ground and achieve what we think it can bring to the world in terms of a partial answer to meeting our energy needs in the future in a low carbon way, and deal with the climate objectives that we must meet for the future. It starts with that ability to enable things, right? So our technologies that I mentioned, that I won't repeat again, help enable the capabilities to make this happen. I think bringing together like-minded companies to begin to get this off the ground is important, because it's a chicken and the egg, right? If in fact you can produce the hydrogen, but you don't have the right way to utilize it at scale, then it doesn't work, or to transport it, or to have enough renewable power to make that happen. So you've got to grow this ecosystem commensurately in order to allow that to occur. And so what we have tried to do is leverage what we have proven over our almost 120-year history. And that is that ability not just to develop new ideas, to develop new technologies, but to actually implement them in the world around us. And that's exactly what we are doing right now today. We're already investing to make this happen. We are already working with like-minded companies to make this happen. We are working with governments to help them understand strategically what could be. We are working with policy leaders to help them understand, when you think about infrastructure, when you think about certain capabilities, how we need to work together to get this off the ground, if in fact we are going to reach the climate objectives we have. And in the end, you've got to make sure that the end use customer is able to use this in a way that makes sense for them, that it's acceptable for them. And so to ensure it's always available, it's always there to meet their needs, to ensure it's easy to use, all of these things need to be brought together in order to drive that ecosystem. So I think I could go on, but I think those are the kind of things that we're doing today to make this happen.
Okay, we have another question for you, Mike. What policies would you like to see adopted by the state of Texas to facilitate the use of hydrogen?
So, you know, it's interesting. I think in my own background, I have a very strong oil and gas component to the early stages of my own career. So I understand the many aspects that we have been able to leverage in the state of Texas today, not only for the benefit of the state, but obviously for the benefit of the US and for the world. And it's unique that if in fact you were looking for the ideal ecosystem for hydrogen to be fully enabled, fully utilized, starting with renewable power, production, storage, and then use, Texas is actually the ideal place to do that. We are already sourcing wind power in the Panhandle to bring down to our operations in the Gulf Coast. We already have all the technologies that we need that we can invest in to make this work. We have a very strong industrial backbone, not just Air Liquide, but all of industry in the Gulf Coast. But we have developed the world's largest hydrogen storage facilities here in the state of Texas, right there at Spindletop, where oil was first discovered, that allow us to store up to 5 billion cubic feet of hydrogen at a time to make sure it's always available for use for our industrial customers and our pipeline systems. And we are in a place where I think the can-do attitude of the state will help enable that as well. So I think it really comes down to enabling the infrastructure and like-minded policies to begin to utilize this, to begin to demonstrate that. Whether it's the state of Texas or it's the country, I think we have talked a lot about infrastructure, and we've talked a lot about aging infrastructure, and talked about how do we reinvest in that infrastructure. And I think it's going to be critically important that we have policies in a mindset that as we invest in infrastructure, we not only rebuild what's been designed and built over the last 100 years, but we build the infrastructure that will lead us to success in this century and beyond. And that's renewable power, that's 5G technology, that's hydrogen. All of these things need to be enabled. And I think we're already starting to do some of these things today. For example, now we're active in a project here at the Port of Houston to begin to demonstrate how you can use hydrogen, similar to what we're doing at the Port of Los Angeles at Long Beach, to use hydrogen-powered tractors to actually move the containers that are brought by the ships. They call it drayage, to transport that to the yards to either be loaded on the flatbed trucks or to be loaded on rail cars to go ahead and move around the world. And we're beginning to show some of those things, but I think it will take those policies. And at the US level, just as we've seen in Europe, just as we're seeing in other countries, I think the incentives to get this off the ground will be important as well.
Right. I know that the off-road vehicle emissions in the port and elsewhere are very significant. So that's a key initiative to reducing emissions in some areas. So related question, can you comment on the battery electric vehicles versus the hydrogen fuel cell electrical vehicles and the associated infrastructure and distribution needs? Are we going to see two parallel systems, along that, in which case we'd have the traditional gasoline fueling stations and then the electric charging stations and then the hydrogen stations? How do you see that evolving in this country?
And that is a great question, because I think it brings to light a number of different aspects of what we're dealing with. So first of all, whether it's battery operated or it's fuel cell driven, you're still dealing with an electric vehicle, right? And so in either case, it's an electric vehicle. It's really a matter of where do you get the electricity from? Where do you get the energy from to power that vehicle? So obviously with a battery powered electric vehicle, a BEV, you are generating that power somewhere else, transmitting it through the grid, and then recharging that battery. And in that particular case, at least today, while there are certainly sources of renewable power available, the majority of that power is being demonstrated in more of a non-renewable way. And so even if you are thinking that there are no emissions around the vehicle itself, the production of the power to go ahead and meet the energy needs have a very different carbon footprint. The second piece of that is you are utilizing the existing grid in order to go ahead and recharge that battery. And if 1 in 1,000 are doing that, fine. Now think about the city of Houston or the city of Chicago or the city of New York or the city of Paris or the city of London or any other major city that already struggles with brownouts at different times. Imagine that everyone in your neighborhood plugs their vehicle in at the same time and is trying to draw power at the same time. It likely is a bit of an overload for the existing grid and the existing structure that you have. So I could go on, but there's a number of elements to that are not as transparent. And I've talked a little bit already about how we would source the hydrogen for the use in terms of the fuel cells that could drive the vehicle. But now let's talk about the use of that power. I think it's interesting to note that for the current available passenger vehicles that are battery electric vehicles, okay? The weight of that battery pack, whether it's the Chevy Bolt or any of the Tesla models, is somewhere between 950 and 1,300 pounds. So there's basically 6 of me riding around with you everywhere you go before you put anybody else in the car. The weight of the fuel cell with a full charge of hydrogen in a Toyota Mirai is 312 pounds. That is a very major weight difference. Now scale that. Begin to think about a larger vehicle, a van, a commercial truck, or a Class 8 tractor that pulls all of those trailers that deliver all the goods across the city of Houston, across the state of Texas, across the US. the weight of that battery is enormous, and it will significantly reduce the payload that you can carry on those vehicles. Looking at a fuel cell operated tractor, I've already talked about the drayage and the project we have at the Port of Houston. We are already demonstrating at the Port of Los Angeles at Long Beach with a specially designed tractor, similar to what would pull vehicles on the road today, okay, that has been modified to run only on hydrogen. And it's successful in moving all of that weight, all of that freight in the drayage process. And all it is that powers that tractor are two of the fuel cells that go into the Toyota Mirai, one stacked on top of the other. So you are looking at a tremendous weight difference to begin with. The second piece is usability, which is critical to all of us. So you and I can drive our current vehicle 300, 400 miles and then pull in and refuel it at a gas station. With a battery powered vehicle, depending on the technology, depending on the age of the vehicle, to get a full charge without harming the battery can take anywhere from 4 to 6 hours up to 24 hours for the oldest vehicles. And yes, there are ways to speed the charge, a more rapid charge, which unfortunately reduces battery life. So maybe you can do that in 2 hours. Or you can get a very rapid charge and maybe a partial charge of 25% of the battery in 15 minutes. But that's very harmful to the long-term life of the battery. The experience of a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle is exactly what we have today from a usability standpoint. You drive your 400 miles, you pull into a center to refuel with the hydrogen to recharge, and you're able to go ahead in 5 minutes is handle that refueling, and off you go. Now that's important to you and I if we want to drive. Think about that tractor trailer. Think about that massive battery pack that now you pull into a truck stop, and how many hours are you going to recharge and have that vehicle sit there rather than continue on the road? And so I think that there's a situation where they will both coexist. And I think for smaller vehicles, for the use of a vehicle in a municipal setting where you don't drive more than 50 miles or something like that, I think a battery makes plenty of sense. But as soon as you start to scale, as soon as you start to do other things, as soon as you want to move significant loads across country, if you think about just even localities, if you have all of the food trucks that leave a warehouse, or all those Amazon vans that seem to find their way to your home, if you're able to go ahead and utilize hydrogen, then they're always able to operate. They're always able to move without being idle. And we already see that in full use today in forklifts. There are almost 35,000 forklifts, hydrogen-powered forklifts in use in the US today. For Amazon, for Coca-Cola, for Walmart, for other large warehouse facilities. And it's been done on a business case because they're able to quickly recharge and move forward and continue to keep those forklifts running rather than have to pull batteries or recharge batteries or do different things, or better yet, to completely avoid a propane-driven forklift. So I could go on, but I think there's a lot of things around this that will create an ecosystem where this makes a lot of sense. And it fully utilizes renewable power, but it makes sure that whether you're trying to power a city at night or you and I trying to use it on a regular basis, that it's always available and always useful in all we do.
I think it'll be very interesting to see how that competition evolves over time. Well, Frank, if I can take one more question for Mike. We've had a number of questions that are related to the workforce side of your business. Some relate to the skill sets, the training issues associated with your workforce, the hiring drivers for you, et cetera. Can you comment on how the move to hydrogen, the move to decarbonize and things is affecting your workforce, your recruiting, your training, your promotion, et cetera?
So obviously in all we do, I mean, we're proud of our technologies, we're proud of innovation, you know, we're proud of all the markets we serve and all of our capabilities. But we are most proud of our people. I mean, it's people that innovate, it's people that develop new technologies, it's people that design, build, and operate our facilities, deliver our products, meet patients' needs, and also manage all the financials and all the inner workings of the company to make us tick. And so people for us are always the primary focus of what we do. Whether that's safety, whether that's how we develop, how we hire people, how we train people, how we challenge people and give them new opportunities. And so you can imagine in our workforce, it is a broad range of skills and capabilities that we use. And actually for us, that has only continued to grow over time. You know, I think if I look at where Air Liquide was when I joined Air Liquide almost 15 years ago to where we are today, you know, we've grown from a group of 40,000 to a group of almost 70,000. And that's made up of R&D scientists, it's made up of some phenomenal engineers, of great people that run and operate our plants and drive our trucks to deliver our products, healthcare professionals that meet our patients' needs, and all with the financial expertise and the human resource expertise and communications expertise. So for us, this only grows our need for highly talented people in every aspect. And we continue to grow that reach of looking for people as we grow in 80 countries around the world. And for us, we continue to build new and broader portfolios in terms of the businesses that we serve and the patients' needs that we serve in a variety of different ways. So our challenge right now is to continue to find that talent, to continue to find the right talent for every type of skill, for every type of competency, and to continue to grow that for the future. And for us to not only find them, but to develop them, to allow them to reach the height of their own professional aspirations, so that whatever that may be, we can provide those kinds of opportunities. And whether you want to do it here in the US or you want to do it anywhere else in the world, we have a very broad and open mindset as to how we think about that.
Thanks again. And Mike, thank you so much for this extremely thoughtful and informative presentation. It's excellent. It's actually very representative of our diverse membership and board, and of course the great business world in which we live in Houston, Texas. Frank, I'm going to hand it back over to you. I apologize to the many questioners who sent in their questions that we didn't have time to get to, but we did the best that we could. Thanks again, Mike, and Frank, over to you.
Thank you very much, John, and sorry to interrupt this thrilling discussion. It could have gone for hours. So thank you very much, Mike, again, for your patience and for your time today. It is so valuable for our French-American community to get to know more about Air Liquide. And I'm very impressed by your innovative mindset in Air Liquide, and also all the things you are doing that impact, in fact, our day-to-day lives. So thank you again. And as French people, I should say that we can be very proud of a company, a French company, who is a so major contributor to fight COVID-19 and also to fight against climate change. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, John. Thank you for everyone for having me today. Thanks for your time. I sincerely appreciate not only the opportunity to speak with you, but also to answer some of your questions. I hope you have a great rest of the meeting. And for those of you who didn't get your questions answered, you've still got Jerome in your midst, and believe me, he knows every aspect of what we're doing and how we move forward. So I would ask you to reach out to Jerome, and I'm sure he can provide some more insight. Thank you. Have a great day. Be safe and stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye. Thank you. So please, we'll move to the next item of the agenda. You know our mission, so I won't comment more about it, and let's move to our activities. And this is the team. And I would like just to present the wall of fame of the chamber. So all our corporate sponsors, which are really great to the chamber. And of course, without them, we couldn't do what we do. And I'd like to highlight new members this year, especially companies like Westlake Chemicals, Sherman and Sterling, and promising companies in Texas like CR Partners, or which is a consulting company, or Global Affairs Associates, dealing with ESG reporting for companies, and promising startups like Demeter, or also I try to find it out on the screen, Iscandia Energy, which are companies we try to help to develop in Texas. So thank you all for joining the chamber this year, and to contribute to our community. Constance, I give you the floor for the activities.
Yes, yeah, thank you. So the idea of the presentation is for me to give you just an overview so you understand what we do and what we are planning to do for next year. It's impossible to cover all activities. We hosted many events and delivered many services this year. So if you are in the audience and I don't talk about what we did together, don't be frustrated. I'm just providing an overview, and you have all the details of our action on the website. So if you want to see all our members and all our activities, you are more than welcome to visit that. And we thought that the best way to give you a feel of what we do at the Chamber of Commerce was to give the floor to some of our members so they can share their experience with us in 2020. So we picked some of our members that were super involved this year, and we are super grateful for that. So I'll start with Vincent. Vincent is part of the Innovation Forum. He was more than that. He was one of the go-to person at the Chamber of Commerce. He's part of the people that are volunteering, the people that are experts in our network. And you saw the team earlier. We are a small team, but we are so lucky to have this amazing professional that are supporting us and supporting the team in its work on a daily basis and providing a very top expertise. So Vincent, I leave you the floor.
Thank you, Constance and team, for making me the spokesperson of the Innovation Committee. I'll shout out to my colleagues, Emmanuel from Boston Consulting Group, Nathalie from Air Liquide, and Marie-Nathalie from Rice, and our colleagues from the consulate, Alexis and Renaud, who are supportive. And as Constance says, it's voluntary. So we put time into this because we see value in it, and that's what I'm going to try to share. So the Innovation Committee is one committee. It talks about innovation and it organizes some events, and I'll come back to that. If you've been around innovation for a while, you know, we always start with quotes. So I'll take this one from Einstein, or it's attributed to Einstein. It's the definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results. And in innovation, we get ideas from other people, from other industries. And I think that's the core of what we're trying to produce as an innovation committee. You know that the successful innovators are not always the inventors. So the famous story of between Edison and Tesla is a telltale sign. So I went back, I said the quote is attributed to Einstein, but it's not Einstein. He never said it, as like many of the quotes. I found an origin for this source, and you'll see that the real quote attributed to Einstein is quite better. It comes from a physician that was very active in the 1900s, Nordau, Max Nordau. And he was criticizing Maeterlinck, a Nobel Prize winner for literature, about his style. He says, this repetition 4 or 5 times of the same imbecile expressions gives the truest conceivable clinical picture of incurable cretinism. So that's my introduction on innovation. I'll let you ponder. what Mike stole a bit of my thunder pitching Texas as a place for innovation. I truly subscribe to the fact that Texas is indeed a place that is growing, and it also does not like to be second fiddle to the Boston area or Silicon Valley, but it has everything that you need to make a striving ecosystem. It's got infrastructure, it's got industries, many of them. It's got the health industry, it's got the aerospace industry, digital industry, and also the service industry that is very innovative in a digital way, and digital, of course. And it's attracting more and more people because the policies to attract these people are coming from the governments of Texas. So Texas is attractive, not only as a pretty place, but as in the sense of it's creating this gravity pull to attract celestial bodies into the space. So we organize, in this spirit, we organize, and this is one event, but there have been many more. We organized an event where we brought together the aerospace and the energy industry, and that's something that I'm quite passionate about. I think we do not communicate that well across industries, and there's an opportunity, and as Mike said, of like-minded people. We need to get beyond the biases of Texas that's not environmentally friendly, et cetera. Very few people know, and it was a presentation from one of the events about wind energy. Texas is the largest producer of wind energy in the US, and ranked in the world, it would be the fifth producer of wind energy with 30 gigawatt. So there's a lot of opportunities. I invite you to join these events. I invite you to contact us to offer topics. We select topics that will generate exchange across the boards of our industry. And I think there are many opportunities. So I invite you to become one of the stars in our galaxy and travel with us on this path to innovation. And I'll close my brief introduction with another quote, this time from famous innovator Buzz Lightyear: "Come with us to infinity and beyond." Thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Vincent. Now I leave the floor to Kimberly. Kimberly worked with us on several events. She has been amazing with us, and I mean, a SIA partner as well, for the expertise. We volunteered Kimberly on different occasions. So Kimberly, if you want to share your experience with us this year.
Absolutely, Constance. Thank you. And thank you to yourself and Leah and Frank for inviting me to talk on behalf of SIA Partners. And I have to say, I'm happy to come after Vincent. As a native Texan and Houstonian, I proudly second all of the great things that you said about Texas and our path and kind of history, and also moving forward for the energy transition. So thank you for that. Again, my name is Kimberly Smith, and I'm the Houston market lead for SIA Partners. And SIA Partners is a Paris-headquartered next-generation management consulting firm and pioneer of what we like to say Consulting 4.0. We offer a unique blend of AI and design capabilities, which augment our traditional consulting approach of business and transformation, data and digital, and creativity and design initiatives for our clients. SIA Partners is a growth company. In 2020 alone, we've made 2 acquisitions, and I'm proud to say that we have over 1,800 consultants in 18 countries with expertise across 30 sectors and services. And through our Consulting for Good initiative, we deliver next level impact by developing innovative CSR solutions for our clients, enabling sustainability as a lever for profitable transformation and transition. So on behalf of SIA Partners, I had the pleasure, as Constance mentioned, of moderating 2 webinars for FACC Houston this year. The first of which was in July, and it was Green Tech and Venture Capital with Total, Solvay, and Demetal. And then in September, as you see on the slide, AI and Energy with Technip FMC, Laurent, and I know he'll be speaking a little later, Spark Cognition, and SIA Partners. Our very own Deputy CEO served as a panelist on the AI and Energy panel. Many FACC Houston members are actually SIA Partners clients in headquarters back in France. And we here in Houston have been excited to expand and deepen those relationships with Houston and North America branches for those particular companies. Specifically, we've had great follow-up conversations and relationship building with Laurent and his team at Technip FMC, as well as Spark Cognition and others as well, who are members for FACC Houston. Like everyone on this call, we're looking forward to meeting with folks in person, hopefully very soon. But the virtual meetups and conversations that we've had have been tremendously beneficial to SIA Partners and connecting the dots from France to Belgium to Houston and beyond. And we look forward to continuing those relationships and partnerships. So with that, I'll hand it back over to you, Constance. And again, thank you all.
Yeah, thank you, Kimberly, and thank you for your contribution. We will keep working together next year for sure.
Absolutely.
So I'll just say a few words about the different type of events that we have. We also have some events that are smaller, that are more practical, and the idea is to give some very tangible advice for our member. So it covers some career development, entrepreneurship, or some marketing and leadership skills. I will just highlight what we did during the COVID crisis and the support we bring to our members. We also relied on the amazing expertise of our network. We were able at the beginning of the crisis to provide some information and discussion with the best experts to our members. I know John with Anton Boons provided some very interesting information on HR topics with some attorneys. We had GLL that had an amazing event with Bruce discussing with our member how to handle the offices, how to discuss with the owner of the building. So it was super helpful. And I want to as well say thank you to BBVA because they were able to assist our member that were struggling to get some help from the state. There was an offer with some support from the PPP that was not easy to access, and our members were able to help. So thank you again to our network. I'm mindful of the time, so I will move forward. About the event, we have to mention our biggest social event. So it was online this year. We had amazing guests. We had the French astronaut. We had Michelin star chef that made a recipe with us. And the idea was we sent the cheese and the wine to our guests so they could enjoy the wine and the cheese from home. And we all connected during the evening of the French festival. Thank you so much to our sponsors that participated. And I want to say thank you to our master of ceremony that really put an amazing show. You can see Jacques here, our board member. He's an amazing chef. So if you're craving for some French food, you should go and meet him. He's not always wearing a beret, but he's a fantastic French guy. Okay, back to the business services. So the business services is one of the reasons why we exist. We are here to support our members, and you will see later in the numbers presented by Jérôme that business services is definitely an area where we are growing at the Chamber of Commerce. So the type of services that we provide are support for HR. We hire talent for our member. As Kimberly was mentioning, our mission as well is to bring exposure and build connection for our members to support their business development. And lastly, we grow a new area of business, which is connecting our member to the innovative ecosystem, both in France and in the US. So for that, we had an amazing testimony from Laurent. Laurent, he's a board member. Thank you so much for your participation, contribution, and providing such an expertise. If you would like to say a few words about how we work together.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me well? It's okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, thank you to the chamber. I think Constance, Léa, we have worked together this year on startup. The goal was to, try to leverage chamber network in France to try to have some French startup be interested in Texas, be interested in maybe testing, piloting their technologies and finding possibly new customers in Texas. So the work we have done together basically is that we have looked at Technip FMC technology and digital priorities, and Constance and Léa have started, to source and screen startups that might be relevant. I think we have established, if I remember well, a list of 25 startups. Most of them were quite relevant for us. We have kind of selected 7 of them where we have had discussion together. We have done technical assessment on our side regarding these 7 startups. And we have had one particularly, which is called Energency, that we would like to find an opportunity to pilot. It's basically in a startup that has an energy efficiency technology. So basically, it's a way to measure your energy efficiency of a manufacturing site, of any type of asset. So for us, we are thinking of either a subsea vessel to try to implement it on our subsea vessel and optimize real-time the fuel consumption of our subsea vessels, or try to pilot it in a manufacturing site of Technip FMC. So we are in discussion at the moment, I would say. I think, Constance, you have hosted Phoebus, and Phoebus is a startup we know very well because we already have an agreement with Phoebus to manufacture the fiber optic for onshore pipeline. So I was quite keen to see Phoebus trying to enter in the US. We know them more for our French footprint, but that's already something good. And ultimately, just for your information, but on the startups, so we have seen quite some on AI. So coming back to the discussion with the CI and Spark Cognition, I think AI is definitely a technology pillar for the future. We have seen some interesting startup in robotics solutions for harsh environment, like offshore environment, for instance. And at the end, new materials. We have had discussion without yet any, proper, concrete, tangible opportunity defined with a startup on carbon fiber, new technologies that could improve massively the use of steel and the use of concrete in our industries. So stopping here, but now it's batch number 2. We continue this work. We have received a new batch from startup from Constance and Léa, and hopefully in the coming weeks and months we can materialize, first few collaboration thanks to the chamber.
Thank you so much, Laurent. And we love this type of work. It's really fascinating to see what's happening in the innovative ecosystem. Thank you so much. And we could not show some members without an highlight on our small companies that are providing amazing technology. We have a Chromatotech. It's a family French company with the headquarters in France, but they have offices all around the world. They have an office in Houston. Sorry, and we have Omar, who is the manager in Houston, and we were happy to work with Omar this year. So Omar, I leave you the floor.
Bonjour tout le monde.
Bonjour.
As a student commenting on the Chamber's French class, I'd like to say, j'espère que vous allez tout bien. Merci de m'avoir permis de participer aujourd'hui. So before commenting on the classroom experience, I have a bit of information to introduce Chromatotech to start. We're a global company with about 50 years of experience in online gas analysis. The company is actually based in Bordeaux, with office and lab space here in Houston and also in Beijing. So our main markets are environmental and industrial air quality monitoring, natural gas, biogas, process monitoring and control, as well as other markets. I wear a lot of hats in the company, but I'm primarily the technical sales and field support engineer for North and South America. And I've been with Chromatotech about 2 years. So our Houston office opened in 2018. We have 3 employees, including myself. And we do have plans to bring in more as our business grows. So our most recent addition, Jenny Hernandez, she's our administrative and after sales assistant, was hired using the Chamber's HR support services. So the Chamber actually handled the entire recruitment process from beginning to end. And we couldn't be more happy with Jenny. So thank you, Chamber, for that recommendation. She's been great. It was extremely helpful. So if any of you out there listening are in need of this type of service, then we can highly recommend the Chamber for this. Since most of our employees are Francophones, we felt that it was a good idea to become familiar with the French language. So we got together with our upper management and decided that we wanted to take this French language class, the business French class. So much of the correspondence that we experience with our French office is in email, face-to-face, is much of the time in French. So it's been very helpful to participate in the Chamber's class. So I and my colleague, we're both really enjoying the class and are learning a great deal. So I appreciate Karin's teaching method, and I find it very effective and it's really enjoyable. Actually, she's just great. Her personality is great for what we're doing, and so I really appreciate her. She does make us work hard, and there's no such thing as wasted time in her class. So I think that's great because the time actually just flies by. But in addition to that, she also offers outside help, any assistance that we need. She's just there. She says, if you need to contact me outside of the classroom, just let me know and I'll help you with whatever you need. So that's been really great, a great positive thing for the Chamber.
Thank you.
She also includes a cultural component to the class, as well as which is a great bonus. So it's interesting to learn history and just general knowledge of culture in France. So that's really great. She's a major asset to the organization and a really highly effective instructor. So I'm really looking forward to the subsequent modules.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I highly recommend the class to anybody who's interested.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so the French business class is a program that we just launched. I mean, it's a program that exists in the network of Chamber of Commerce, and it gives access to a certificate, but it's new in Houston. And as Omar was saying, we have an amazing teacher, and yeah, you are more than welcome to attend our class. We need to move to the election. So just to conclude, I will say that now we are planning for 2021, and I want to say to our members that it's a great time to reach out and share some ideas and topics you want us to cover in 2021. So thank you so much, Franck. I'll let you continue.
Thank you, Constance, and thank you all for your comments and testimonies about your activities with us. So financial results, I will leave the floor to Jérôme. Jérôme, do you hear us? Or are you able to speak? Okay, Jérôme told me he has some problem with his micro, so maybe he has already received too many questions about Air Liquide and too many job applications, so maybe his computer crashed. Okay, so I go on with the results. So our idea is to have a sound situation for the Chamber. So that means that we should sell services, and the same way, of course, collecting membership and sponsorship to balance our budget and to reach a good situation. So if we look at what happened last year and this year, of course, because of the COVID crisis this year, so we have decreased revenue for 2020, but so you see the forecast, which is minus 33% compared to last year. So we slashed many of our expenses to reduce our cost. And first of all, we do no more of offices in Houston, so hope we can do it again next year. But so we try to reduce the cost. So and to get more result through new activities, as Constance mentioned it, especially business services. So in the end, even if the revenues are decreasing this year, we will have a net result by the end of this year of around $26,000, so which is good, in fact, compared to the current situation. And so, as I said before, so we are getting through the crisis, and this is good for the cash position of the chamber. If we go in detail to what we've done this year, so you can see that compared to 2019, membership is still important, and of course events are less than they were last year, especially because we don't charge the webinars, so they are free. And what is interesting to see that the business services are improved, and just what mentioned Omar and Constance, this new French business class activity is starting, and that's a good good beginning for it. So I hope we can get more attendees next year for these business classes, French business classes. So, and I should mention, of course, that we got a PPP with the help of BBVA, and so that's what you see as the grant in the green share of the graph. So so we have a good situation, and the cash position at the end of this year will be roughly what it was at the last day of last year. So so once again, we don't have to panic about the situation. We handled the crisis well, and we adjusted to this situation to develop new activities and to get more revenues, and it was quite successful. So I hope now that 2021 will be better, of course, and that we can resume with physical events, in-person events. But as for now, it is okay for from a budget point of view. So let's move to the election of the board of directors. This is a task for the annual meeting. So it is a vote from individual and corporate members, and you will get an email from Leah. She's sending you right now an email for the online vote. So you will have the yes and no button, and you will just have to use those buttons to vote, and we will follow the number of voters online when you do it. So the list of the board directors. Sorry, I just moved my screen. You have the list here of our directors, coming from many big companies of the chamber, and also from small businesses, and a lot of them have been supporting the chamber for a long time, and are members of the board for a long time. And I would like to say just a few words about two new members, two new directors, who are so Laurent Pagnon from TechnipMC. Laurent just spoke a few minutes before, and also Manuel Aurillac, partner at Sherman and Sterling, and Manuel is very good help also for the chamber. He's a very good French speaker, and I'm a lover of French culture. So so we are very happy to welcome them on board at the chamber. So so you can vote. So the motion is the list that you have, and we will leave you a few minutes to vote online. So I hope everybody received the link to vote. If you have any problem, you can use the Q&A to ask for some help, and we will follow it online. It is the first time we do it. So
yeah, so actually, if you are a member, you received an email, and on this email you can vote. So I don't know if you see my screen, but this is the question that you receive, and you click, and then we will have the results that will appear.
okay, and I
Yeah,
will do it
we
at
can
the
see
same
that
time.
people are starting to vote.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it's working well, Constance.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, we are receiving the vote right now. If you can see it on my screen.
Yes, it works well. Okay. Do you have an idea of the, okay, we see the responses.
So Frank, maybe we can move forward, or let the
Okay.
vote open, and we will publish via email the exact result. But so far,
Okay.
you can see it's 100%.
Yeah, I think that's a good good way to make it. So thank you all for your votes, and we see that these are yes answers. So thank you very much to the members, and congrats to the, now that we have exceeded the quorum. Thank you to the to all, and of course congratulations to the directors of the board. And so I will now end up with this annual meeting. So thank you again. I wish you all a wonderful Christmas. Stay safe, and we hope that we can see you as soon as possible in person to celebrate. Thank you all. Thank you,
so
John,
much.
and thanks to the team for organizing the annual meeting online, which is always somewhat tricky. Thank you.
And let me add one last comment. I think it is worth mentioning that, you know, our team did a fantastic job with the Beaujolais Festival, even though first time remote. Constance, Leah, Jacques Fox, fantastic. Jean-Francois Bonneté gave a great talk. It was a terrific evening. I had many people compliment the chamber for such a great job.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much.
And I mentioned Aurore as well. Aurore is not here today. She just had a baby, but she worked on the Beaujolais event as well. So thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you all.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.